it's like one of my earliest memories is my dad leading me in the sinner's prayer. So there's a gospel connection. But one of my other earliest memories, when I think of what's one of the first things I can remember, when my dad was overdosed on, I think, heroin. And I remember waking up and already just waking up into a sense of panic and seeing my dad discolored in the face and my mom over him and praying. And so there's the juxtaposition like of my life. It's like my dad led me in the sinner's prayer, but then I also saw this.
Most Christians that I meet, they're not reading their Bibles because they're not interested in it or in Jesus. It's frustrating. It's confusing. We often get lost. I myself have felt that for many years. The Bible according to Jesus was written to help people understand the point of the Bible, which we're not hiding. It's about Jesus. How to understand the Old Testament law and the covenants and the promises and the prophecies. Hopefully this is helpful for you and will encourage you to read your Bible more. You can grab a copy of this new book at theocast.org. All right, welcome to Theocast. For those of you that are listening, I've got a guest in the office here. I'll let you know here in a minute. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see there's a little bit of different setup. We've had to adjust some things with cameras malfunctioning. We were just talking about spiritual warfare. Who knows? This could be it. But if this is your first time listening, we're so glad that you're here. You can go to theocast.org and learn more about our ministry, books, all that we have available. I'm Jon Moffitt. I'm the host, the pastor of Grace Reformed Church in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And with me, not online, but in person.
Yes.
Dillon in his own time and his own dime. See that? Totally just rhymed that, bro.
We're already going there.
Flew into Nashville and flying back out in just a few hours. So
yes,
been up since 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. The guy is sharp. You know, he's ready to go.
Not at all. This is what the raw comes out.
That's where the
sleep deprivation.
Exactly. So Dillon Chase, if you guys don't know about Dillon, you've been doing ministry for almost 20 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, my first album came out in 2006 as a Christian, you know.
Yeah.
So, wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
I got started when I was 5.
Really? No. Your first album?
I always leave people guessing my age, man. I'm ambiguous.
Yeah, so we'll get a little bit about his backstory in a minute, but Dillon Chase has been producing music for 20 years, and we'll put his website and bio, but it's DillonChase.com. Yeah,
DillonChase.com is too expensive. So.
Didn't get it early enough?
Didn't get it early enough.
There you go. And then all your socials, we'll put all of that in the link.
Cool.
You guys can check that out. And so a little bit about Dillon, just as far as my experience, then we'll get to know about him. But this was during COVID. I was just telling you this story, so I figured let's just pick up where we left off. But it was during COVID. My son had sent me a song by Beautiful Eulogy, and being that Spotify is like, oh, do recommended artists. So I went down to the recommended artists, and I think you were in one of the 3 that were down there. So I tapped on it, and then I was sort of like by popular songs. And so
never do that. You always got to find the deep cuts, but you found the good one.
I did. And so I started kind of scrolling through it, and I was like, wow, I like this guy. He's got good theology. Because sometimes, man, you know, I don't want to dig on anybody, but sometimes you listen to Christian rap music and you're like, wow, this is really rough to listen to. Mm. This theology is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so came across this song, Black Holes. And if you want to know, like if you went to Spotify in 2020 and said what was the number 1 listened to song, that was probably it.
Wow.
Which was, I was telling you, I would listen to it every Sunday morning on my way into church, getting ready to preach, and was in tears every single time. And I almost don't want to steal the thunder. Like, you need to go look up Dillon Chase, Black Holes, listen to for yourself. But we're going to talk about that song and some other songs, just of kind of the theology of like what was going through your like life and mind, and like, why did you write that? But for those of you who don't know, so how many albums do you have out now?
Over 10. Yeah. I always forget now.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's a long time. 10 albums is a lot.
Yeah. They started getting good around 2014, in my opinion.
There you go.
Other people will disagree with that, but I feel like 2014, Be Different. I had the song Mercy that you came across. That's where I think I found my voice and kind of found what I wanted to communicate, rather than just regurgitating whatever theological phrase or like hot topic. And And so my music went more introspective and gospel centered because obviously the gospel is the answer and there was a biblical worldview. But pre 2014, a lot of my music was kind of in the vein of just trying to restate certain theological truths in the form of music, which, you know, people do that really well. Like Shylin does that really well. But that just wasn't really who I was as an artist. I'm like, I would rather read my theology in a book than hear it in a rap song. And so, 2014 kind of marked a change in my approach to music. So if you go back and listen to the archives, be careful if you go past 2014. It might get a little cringe.
That's funny. I was on Spotify yesterday and I thought, I don't think I've ever heard these earlier albums. Where they've always been up there on Spotify?
Yeah, they're deep in the archives, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I ever scrolled back that far.
Yeah, don't.
So, don't. Well, that's how I am about some of my sermons.
Oh, man.
Yep.
It's the same. It's like I can't even listen to my own voice, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad that everything pre-seminary doesn't exist online because it was pretty bad. And then most stuff post-seminary is not available, which is also good.
One of my first sermons, the Book of Philemon, I was asked in 2007 to be a part of this groundbreaking Christian rap project called 13 Letters, where they took the Pauline epistles and did an overview in the form of song and created a Bible curriculum to go with it. And for some people, this was their introduction into like hermeneutics and gave them a love for expository teaching through this thing called 13 Letters. They gave me the Book of Philemon, and I think I first pronounced it Philemon, you know. I rhymed Philemon like 5 times, you know, and then they're like,
they just thought you were being clever.
It. Yeah. And so they also wanted the artist to prepare a message and actually preach a sermon on it too. And I preached it at my little home church of about, back then, maybe 15 people. And I think my pastor recorded it on like a portable cassette tape, which sounds like it was in the 90s. It wasn't. Right. It was 2007, but that's all we had. I hope it's been burned or something. I mean, I was 21 years old, and yet I preached like John Piper. It was just really weird. Like, it takes a while. I always tell people when you preach, you hear someone else's voice in your head, and it just takes a while for that to kind of fade to the background and you find your own voice. So, I was pretty much sounded like John Piper, but I was a 21-year-old, like, young guy from an urban background. It was just really bizarre.
That's awesome. Is it you? Who has someone has Piper in?
Oh yeah. I love Piper, man. Every time when I used to travel through St. Paul, like the airport, I was always looking for Piper. I'm like, I'm going to run into him, you know? Yeah. So I think I have a few albums that have John Piper snippets. Awesome. I never ask for permission. I'm always about asking for forgiveness. You know? Ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission.
I've always wondered about that. Like, do they need to know or whatever? I'm sure they're excited.
I tried to book John Piper for a inner city youth retreat that I put together. We were part of this ministry. I had like 7 people. And whoever was running Desiring God was so gracious to even respond to my email. Again, I was 21 years old. And I'm like, yeah, we want John Piper to come speak to like 7 kids in the inner city. And they're like, thank you so much for your request. But as the elders and the board of Desiring God, we've decided that if he's going to be away from his local church, it kind of needs to be like maximize the potential impact. And I remember I was so offended. I was like, you never know. It could be the next Charles Spurgeon and that group of 6 kids, you know. But I got over it.
Yeah. I'm sure he was getting a lot of requests back then.
Sure, yeah. Around 07, 06, he probably got at least I tried. I shot my shot. So
yeah,
what can
for
you
sure.
do?
So did you grow up in a Christian home?
No, but that's actually, I'm rethinking that question right now in real time. I grew up in a home that understood the world through a Christian worldview.
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever said that. I've always said I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't grow up in a home where Christ was honored and pursued. But I grew up in a home that understood right and wrong from a Christian worldview. And I'm really thankful for that, because my parents knew that their drug addiction and alcohol and abandonment, they knew it was wrong, and it grieved them to like the point of self-destructive behavior, is to where I could have grown up in a different environment where that was seen as okay and celebrated. So that's how I answer that question. I grew up in a home that borrowed from a Christian worldview, but it was just full of chaos, and lots of traumatic things that come whenever there's codependency and addiction. If anyone's familiar with that, it's just so crazy. And then I have a big brother too, to throw 2 kids into that with 2 codependent addicts is just a mess.
Yeah. So when did you first start understanding the gospel?
Probably on the drive over here from the airport. when I picked up the Bible according to Jesus.
There you go. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, it has been helpful. I have this memory that feels like a dream. And I've told this story so many times. I'm like, it really happened. My dad led me in a sinner's prayer. I had to have been around 5 or 6 years old. Mm-hmm. My parents had a tender heart for the Lord. They had times in their past where they were involved serving in church. But it's like one of my earliest memories is my dad leading me in the sinner's prayer. So there's a gospel connection. But one of my other earliest memories, when I think of what's one of the first things I can remember, dude, it's when my dad was overdosed on, I think, heroin. And I would sleep in my parents' room a lot as a kid because I'd be scared. And I have a little pallet on the floor. And I remember waking up and already just waking up into a sense of panic and seeing my dad discolored in the face and my mom over him and praying. And so there's the juxtaposition of my life. It's like my dad led me in the sinner's prayer, but then I also saw this. So in my childhood, I had a soft spot towards God. I prayed. I wanted to read the Bible. My parents went to church. I liked going to church. If I went to go stay with my cousins and they went to church, I felt good. I felt happy, singing songs. But I didn't understand the gospel. I just understood that God was real, Jesus was good. And if you prayed something hard enough, God would have to do it. So most of my exposure was kind of leaned a little bit word of faith. So fast forward to the time I'm in 7th grade, I've already seen a revolving door of addiction. I've seen drug rehabs. I've seen suicide attempts. I've seen moving to new places and your sin follows you there. I've seen spiritual warfare. I've seen, my mom almost died when I was in 2nd grade. And I think 2nd or 4th grade. I don't know, maybe, I can't remember if it was 2nd or 4th grade. She was detoxing off of alcohol and another substance, cold turkey. And she hallucinated I even think after a month, she still was having she would see bugs crawling on your hand and be tempted to wipe them off even a month later. But when my mom tells some of those things she was seeing, there'd have to be a whole nother podcast if you talk about spiritual warfare. And so these are things that by 7th grade, I've seen stuff that I can't even imagine. My daughter's in 8th grade. I can't imagine her seeing some of these things,
they make a lot of connections. There's a lot of correlations between the spiritual realm and drugs.
I think it's called Fine Wine and Spirits for a reason. Yeah. So just to I always like to lighten the mood with humor. It's one of the gifts God gave me. So I'll tell, since that is kind of dark, I'll tell a funny story. Randomly, it's kind of funny. So basically, my mom is we're at my aunt's house, and my aunt is taking care of my mom almost 24/7 as she's going through these detoxes. It's serious when your body's been dependent on something for that long. And I remember I would hear my mom talking and yelling at stuff that she sees. But then some nights would be quieter. And I remember thinking, I want to go sleep, I want to go lay in and be in my mom with her in bed. I want to sleep there. I don't want to be in here. I miss my mom. And so I don't know if my aunt was like, yeah, go ahead. But someone gave me the green light. I crawled into bed with her. Everything's going good. I'm talking to my mom. And 5 minutes later, she straight up looks at me, totally dead serious, and says, Dillon, do you want to buy some Kool-Aid? These little girls are selling cups of Kool-Aid. And I went, it was like Home Alone when I went like, ah, I just ran out of there and went back into my room. And I was just like, that's how like severe the hallucinations were, you know, it was like auditory and visual hallucinations. So I had seen some crazy stuff. I can laugh about some of it. You know, doing a podcast is always cheaper than therapy. But in middle school, I was running out of patience with God. And I know that's like a very arrogant thing to say because I was arrogant and prideful. And I made a conscious decision to not really give God the time of day. And I believed a lie that my suffering would be my salvation, that God would never hold me to account. God would never punish me because I'm receiving my punishment now. And I'll tell you, I actually had this really warped view that God was going to, it's hard for me to even say this out loud, that God was going to apologize to me. Man, I'm sorry about that hard life you had. Now, you know, come into my eternal rest. Let's go fishing. You know, I'll be your daddy. You know, that type of like cheap view of the gospel. And so I didn't understand like sin and repentance. Really, you'll love this, like really post-conversion probably, you know?
Yeah.
But it was a fast forward to high school. I left my house for the third time at 16. By 17, I had pretty much was wandering from place to place, didn't have an actual place to live. Part of that was just by my own choice because I was 17 with no supervision, just free to do whatever I want, you know, but it also had its drawbacks, like not having a place to stay. My friend's family takes me in my first week of my senior year of high school, and it was a Christian family, and they had us go to church. They tricked me into reading the Bible. You know, we would be making our rap songs about violence and womanizing and all these things. And he would come in and say, like, y'all aren't going to talk about that stuff in my house. And he'd have a page of Bible verses, like, y'all need to write raps about this. I still don't understand Ecclesiastes, but you can imagine that was one of the verses he put for us to rap about, something in Ecclesiastes. I couldn't even pronounce it. But he was planting gospel seeds. And then the Holy Spirit just started convicting me of my sin. And I spent a lot less time pointing at my parents' problems and realizing I'm enslaved to sin, just like my parents. My sin just looks more respectable, but I'm an addict too, to my own vices. And I was like, well, I couldn't shake off this conviction. I'm like, what is happening? Like the music I listened to, I wasn't enjoying it as much. The relationship with no boundaries with my girlfriend was like making me feel sad and like grieved. So I tried to shake that off for maybe 3 to 6 months. And then in September of 2004, I just broke under the weight of conviction. And I was convinced that Jesus was the answer. Didn't understand the Trinity, I didn't even have the Christian lingo. Right. I don't even remember how I talked to God in my 1998 Ford Taurus. That's the car I was in, with the CD Walkman, with the tape adapter to go into, so you can, And I can tell you now that I repented and trusted in Jesus, but I don't know what verbiage I was using. Yeah. I was just desperate. And
so there was a moment you're like, I need Christ.
Oh yeah. I was almost 19 years old, September 2004. And there's of course been ups and downs, but the hunger and thirst for Jesus and just for grace, hasn't gone away.
So first album was in 2006.
So I was like, I've been saved for less than 2 years, which is really unwise to think about. But it's fun to listen to that and remember like, oh, like I had just learned what it meant to be saved by grace. That's why I have a song called Saved by Grace. Whatever I learned, and that's such a fun time to be saved and you don't know anything. And praise the Lord that I was part of a healthy church, right? It was a church plant of Denton Bible. It was called Lifeline Bible Fellowship. And everything is, it's like, Paul, who's Paul? I thought God wrote the Bible. Why do people keep talking about Paul? It's like, oh, I want to write a song about Paul. Or, oh, we're saved by grace through faith. This is amazing. I didn't know that. So it was really just exciting time. I was just feasting on God's word. I was surrounded by a lot of believers who had been saved longer than I had. And I was trying to just put in work to catch up to them because I was still looking through the table of contents and they're just flipping their Bible every which way.
Yeah. So for you, some people, they'll write out like in a journal or, if you've got to try and explain it to your kids. So for you, rapping was kind of your way of processing theology.
I guess so. Yeah. I never thought about that. Yeah, it totally was. Until this day, I process through. Even when I take my sermon notes, I'll always have something that feels like a verse or a start of a poem that I'll kind of write off to the side that kind of helps me process it, internalize it so that I can apply it to my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see, 2016, you said you said 2006 was your first.
Yeah, 2006. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot has happened between 2006 and now. So you're married.
Yeah. And I got married in 2005. So I was married when my first album came out. The church I was at just so happened a huge heavy hitter like Lecrae at that time was going to that church, and they had their own record label with a studio. And that's how when he was done recording his album, they were kind enough. That's why I'll always just have so much gratitude for them. He helped produce my first album, let me use their studio for free so that I could put it out, because I worked for 10 years. I worked, just a regular job to try to support my family and fund my ministry. So for someone to say, you can record for free, that was huge. Yeah. So
especially because one song can cost you
a lot. And it's not, you're not going to make it back,
No.
So I came out with my album and I would just perform at, we did prison ministry. We did community outreaches, just wherever. I did a couple birthday parties. That was a mistake. Then I had a really poor work ethic. I was young though.
Yeah.
And I was, God, I want to do ministry. And so I ended up losing my job after being married about maybe 3 months. I don't recommend that.
Yeah, no.
And that's what got us to Oklahoma. I always joke that it was witness protection, but the truth is my great grandfather had built a small little like 900 square foot house there. And my grandma was kind enough to let us move in there to like get reestablished. And we just ended up staying in Oklahoma. So that's how I ended up there.
Okay. So a lot of your music, some of it is lighthearted and fun, which is good. And I know that a lot of the youth appreciate that. A lot of the songs that I'm more drawn to, or I would say the more, I think I can hear your past. I can hear your struggle with, I would say, reality. Like, this is real. Like, this is life. And even like, I didn't even know your history about your childhood. Like most people may not know this, but we actually have never talked on the phone.
Yes.
It was messaging through Instagram, and then eventually we shared each other's number. So today was the first time we ever met each other. First time I ever talked to each other.
I tell my wife I'm safe. He's not like crazy. He is who he says he is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not in some basement. Oh wait, maybe I am. But so hearing your past, I had no idea about, your childhood, but it makes a lot of sense in some of the words and some of the music that you're writing. Why does he have to stay on pills? Things like that.
Yeah.
Is that from that?
Yeah. So why would I revisit that in 2017? It's because I started realizing there's so many kids that's still their reality. And I recently did an event in Southwestern Colorado, is like the Four Corners, very unchurched like area, like crazy
Colorado,
unchurched. Sure. So I'm like eating breakfast one morning, and this who I think is like a girl, right? Like just someone in student ministry, is I could tell like they're hovering, waiting to talk to me. And I'm like trying to go into my omelet with the green chilies, which is very scary to do when you're in Colorado, New Mexico. And I'm like, oh, like, hi. She goes, I'm sorry. I just want to tell you, you were at my very first church camp I ever went to in 2016. I'm here with my husband now. We're leaders. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm getting old, And she said, you were the first person. It was in Glorieta, New Mexico. There's probably 1,500 people there. She said, you were the first person I ever saw be vulnerable, like in one of those settings. And what I was vulnerable about was my testimony. And I realized a lot of these kids are just like me, and they don't think they could talk about it. And they're so embarrassed to talk about it, and they think it's taboo. But when someone in a position of leadership or on a platform talks about it, it could be just that one little glimmer of hope. Because some of it's serious, man. Like sometimes they need to get help. They might need to live somewhere else. And so when I write about it, sometimes I'm not writing about it like feeling so lost and broken. I'm writing about it because I know that there's people who are still dealing with that, young people. So Black Holes, though, was actually a very, drug addiction didn't go away, you know. Even into my adulthood, my dad really struggled, and I started seeing how it was affecting generationally. Now the grandkids are getting affected by it. In 2016 and 2017, there was a couple like really rough instances of relapses. And on one hand, I saw God miraculously deliver my mom. I mean, my mom, I told you about the hallucinations. I think she definitely had serious depression disorders when I was growing up. I saw God just deliver her. In 2008, my mom was just like a new person. Everything I thought I lost in my childhood, God restored it tenfold. My mom is one of my heroes. I mean, just went from being the most, you know, can't depend on this person to being the most dependable person in our lives, and supporting the ministry through babysitting kids through all the years. And I'm like, God, why not just do that for my dad? Like it was effortless for you to do it for my mom. And so this is probably how Chaos feels. I just want him to stay off pills. Wish I could look him in the face, you know, and not feel all the rage instilled. I remember like I didn't like Father's Day. I would sit there and look through all the cards and be like, nope. I just didn't like it. And Black Holes was really this idea of, the whole album was called Drifting. It was all built off of this story actually that's on Amazon. I think like the e-version and an audiobook called Fight the Drift. And I told an allegorical story about a astronaut named Adam Sphere, right? Like Adam kind of representing our federal head, but also atmosphere, Adam Sphere. But it was, and I guess you can kind of tell what's going to happen because it's called Drifting. Eventually, he thinks all he ever needs in life is to get to space, like ever since he was a little kid. When he gets there, he's unfulfilled, and he's like, well, maybe there's just more. So this space tether is holding me back from fully exploring space, you know, and flat earthers, don't come at me, bro. This is just a story. So he detaches from his space tether and dies, you know, because he drifts. And I thought, in my life, I've drifted from God, and the very thing that's actually anchoring me, I think, is hindering me. So I detach, but God in his grace, you know, pursues me. So Black Holes was taking the idea of, you know, black hole is where a star has collapsed and gravity is so strong there that not even light can escape from a black hole. And I thought sometimes suffering feels that way, that it's so strong that you feel like no light gets through. So I talked about my relationship with my dad, and then I talked about my friend who had went through a tough divorce, and my other friend who had been converted but had done time in prison, and his past was preventing him from being able to be in his kid's life. And I'm happy to say that I just took my dad to a men's conference last year. In November, I went to visit my dad on his birthday, where he was leading Bible study at his local church. My friend who went through that tough situation, his kids are in his life. My other friend who really was like, I would rather be in prison again, because at least I had visitation. You know, I see his kids at church all the time with him. So the Lord, now that it's been 9 years, I can tell you, like, everything I talk about in that song that felt so impossible, the Lord has had so much grace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think every time, like that little phrase, who's going to teach little Gracie to shave her legs? Every time I lose it every time I hear that.
Yeah.
And the reason is that as a pastor, I never in a million years thought like rap music would be something that protected my soul, which is crazy, you know. But you know, this is COVID. Everything feels chaotic. The church is small. I'm walking people through some really, really dark moments. I'm processing some stuff that, you know, that has happened in my past, and it was just interesting hearing you're talking about being able to like relate, like what the song allowed me to do is saying, I'm not crazy to think that the world feels like a black hole. Like, I'm not crazy to think that. But what I love about the song, which is why you're sitting in this chair today, is that it doesn't stop there. Like, for people who suffer enough, like I don't think there's equal suffering. Like, I'm convinced of that. Like, there are people who go through things that I don't even understand how they're still, you know, standing on 2 feet. Right. But you go through enough suffering and you're like, yeah, there's nothing this world has to offer that I really, really am excited about. Like, you realize, I think I'd rather Christ come back and set everything right when you see enough pain and you see enough suffering. And then you realize, okay, the reason I'm here is that I need to rescue people from the lie that the world has something to offer them. And that's where the latter part of this song, that's where it ends up.
The suffering reveals that.
Yeah.
Reveals that certain things that are so crushing that it would be foolish to think that a Netflix binge or a really good double cheeseburger is going to solve it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
or fame or marriage or sex or money or whatever you want to put in there, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, you've already your childhood was pretty rough, but even into having children has been a challenge for you as well.
Yeah. You know, we wrote the song through, I say we, because I just feel like my family is so a part of.
And that through was like 2000, was that
18, 19, and it was after our youngest son, Josiah, had double pneumonia and was at the pediatric ICU, and we almost lost him. And that was one of those moments where I learned, I understood my suffering when I was a lost kid with lost parents. And then I realized I kind of had packaged up a very prosperity testimony in the sense that when I would share my testimony, look how crazy my life was. My mom was hallucinating. My dad was blowing all the money on dope before Christmas. I saw domestic abuse, abandonment, but then came Jesus. And now look at my life. I'm married. My kids love me. My wife loves me. And I didn't think that was incomplete, but that's just how I, in a very like reduced version, how I shared my story. So then when I was faced with my kid being in the ICU, thinking, wait, like, help me make sense of this because I'm your child, God, you know? And so I had a friend who had lost his child around the same age that Jojo was at the time. That's my son. And he was calling me while I'm in the hospital. I'm like, I don't want to hear from this person. I don't want to talk to someone who it has to walk through like my biggest fear. But eventually, he's like, pick up the phone, you know, and he's a big guy. So I'm like, okay. And my pastor had given me beautiful counsel from God's word. Friends had given me truth. They had prayed with me. They had been present. But talking to someone who had been through the suffering and worse, his words carried so much weight that they actually, in the moment, brought us a little bit of a sense of relief. Like, man, you know, whatever we go through, you know, comfort those with the comfort that you've been comforted by. So, you know, since then, we found out our youngest was special needs, which now autism is like, I'm about ready to just vote for a new word or bring back Asperger's because autism, it's lost all its meaning almost because when I tell a flight attendant, I'm sorry, my son's autistic, like, oh, me too, you know, or so is everyone. But I'm like, no, like
it's not ADHD.
Yeah. It's profound. They used to call it severe. I mean, what they told us will require lifelong care, you know, but he's still like brilliant and awesome. But even that is connecting with other dads who are in that world who were suffering together, you know, and the Lord has shown me so much. good that comes through that. But it has its hard moments. Right now, we just got to go to Washington, D.C. to be a part of Night to Shine. So that was less than a week ago. So we're still on cloud 9 after that. And I'm like, oh no, it's just all good. There's no hard parts.
Right.
But it is, there are difficulties, and I don't know, because he's 9 years old now, and I still don't think he has the capacity to be embarrassed just by things he does himself in public. But then I don't, want to say things, and it's like, Dad, why'd you say that? So but I would just say, even yesterday, there was, it was a busy day. There was 4 different occasions where I had to clean, my son who's 9 years old. And just in the moment, it's just like, gosh, this is really what we're doing, But I just thought, just as much as God is honored if I'm preaching to 1,500 kids at camp, or I'm reaching people on the Theocast podcast, right here, this is the heart of Jesus, to care for the least of these. And sometimes I just have to remind myself that it's not a distraction from the main thing, or it's not something that's pulling me away from the main thing. Having a special needs son is actually directing me to the main thing. And it's made me a way more sympathetic person. It's humbled me, and it continues to humble me like nothing else ever has. And reading Romans 8, it's like God causes all things to work together for good, those who love God. God is the good. Being loved by God is the good. Being made like Jesus is the good. My special needs son is allowing me to experience the love of God in ways I wouldn't know, or even be able to, as I care for my special needs son, it makes me understand more of God's love for me. That's a good thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this moment where you almost kind of pull out the Job card in the song.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do pull out the Job card, and it's like, you already know what's going to happen once you do that.
Well, and
I just felt like I was whining too much in that song. That's the one thing. I wish I could just re-record it with a different tone in my voice. But at the time, I really was, crying out like that. It was very raw.
Yeah, that's what's, my daughter and my son, I have 2 children that are getting into music, and so they're writing a lot and producing, and so you can see their emotion, and it's terrifying. Like with a sermon in a podcast, maybe it's kind of captured for all time. I don't know. People don't listen to sermons and podcasts over and over and over like they do music.
Yeah. And
so music, it's almost like a portion of your soul is encapsulated, and then people get to peer into it, good or bad, right? There's a lot of music that I wish we didn't have to endure because of just how evil and dark it is.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I think Satan knows how powerful music is, and we're using it for God's glory, and yet he can use it to just bring, destruction.
Yeah. I've seen that, in my own life for sure.
Yeah. So, so you're in a genre, and I would say a style that primarily is a lot of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had to wrestle with that at all?
Well, I'll say that in its origin, rap music was really reporting live. That's really what it was supposed to be, reporting live.
Yeah.
And of course, it got commercialized. And what sells is what's 1 John say about the lust of the flesh, the boastful pride of life. That's what sells. I dealt with it because I bought into the lie before I was saved. I remember as bad as my childhood was, I was like, man, I want some more bad stuff to happen to me so I have a cooler story. How dumb is that?
You already have.
I'm like, oh man,
it's already bad enough.
Eminem's mom was actually drugging him to make him think he was sick.
Wow.
Yeah, I need something that's on that level, or 50 Cent got shot 9 times. If I could just maybe get shot at twice, how stupid at 15 years old to be like, this is what it means. It's because it's so dark and destructive. And most of the time I'm performing my music, is in a Christian setting. Now,
Sure.
when I do like, there's been events I've done at prison where it's just everyone's doing stuff.
Sure.
It's, I guess you could call it secular.
Mhm.
And it is, you see someone leave the stage and then I come to the stage and I'm literally just pushing back against everything they just stood for. And like, y'all realize that's how y'all ended up in jail, right? It's like believing this stuff. It just blows my mind that they let that happen. But I think maybe early on, like, you know, of course, there's still a lot of churches, even still, I think there's some, maybe not a lot, that are unsure about how this type of art form could be used.
Mhm.
Definitely early on, it was more of an issue. And then I exist outside of the music industry for the most part. So I haven't had to deal with, oh, well, we want you to take this out of your song, things like that. I've been able to do things independently for the most part. And so I kind of just keep my head down, love my family, try to serve people and make music, you know?
Yeah. There's a part of like art that is lost. It's like, you know, there's a really strong movement, and I'm thankful for it, where like in the movie industry and the TV industry and the music industry, we're trying to reclaim what feels like is only secular.
Yeah.
Like we create a secular versus religious, like that's secular and that's religious. And sometimes it's not, it's just how it's used. Like, you know, pancakes can be good and pancakes can be bad. It depends on how you want to use it. You know, some of this stuff is what we, you know, it's amoral. There's nothing moral about it.
What did Luther say about the shoemaker? Was it Luther who had
Luther,
that quote? Yeah. So you didn't have to put a cross on.
That's right. Just make a good
really
shoe
good shoes,
and sell it for a fair price.
And, you know, I told you we got to go to Washington, D.C., do the touristy thing. And it's amazing how much religious art, that was just art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's those certain eras of time where it was religious people, or even specifically Christian people, who were leading and creating the art. That's a whole, I don't understand how all that happened, like in the 70s and stuff, where it kind of became this subculture of Christian music and things like that. But I think it was Francis Schaeffer, who, How Should We Then Live? Or I don't know, there's one of his books that gets really into that whole thing. Yeah. So I've tried to approach my music. I recognize my audience, and I recognize a lot of times I'm being called into a moment to serve the church. So I'm serving the vision of the conference. And so I write towards that. But when I write my albums, nothing's off limits for me. You know, I'm going to write about the frustrations. I'm going to write about the questions and things like that. It's to where early on in my music, I wouldn't have felt that was Christian to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, then you have fun songs too, like 18 Summers. So.
Yeah, which will still make you cry and be fun at the same time.
Every time I'm like, all right, this is a happy song, just making me cry.
Yeah,
because I
can't even watch the music video anymore because she was 5 in that music video. The song 18 Summers is like, how could you really phrase that? You know, steward your time well. Summers, you make a lot of memories in the summer. I wrote it for my daughter when she was 5. Now she's about to turn 14 in a couple weeks, and I don't even like to think about how many summers we have left.
What's funny is I started listening to that song when my daughter was 14.
Oh,
how old is that song now?
It came out 2017, so it's also like 9 years old.
Yeah. So my daughter is now about to turn 22.
Wow.
And so when I was 14, it hit me. And so that song, like it's gotten harder and harder for me to listen to. I'm like, oh man.
Oh, one of my pastors, as far as I know, he still has not listened to it, or either hasn't watched it, or one of them, or maybe both. He refuses. He has 3 daughters.
And it's not a sad song.
No.
It's a happy song.
Yeah, it's celebratory.
It's very celebratory. Yeah. No, that's interesting. So talk a little bit about, like you said, when you sit down to write your own music. So like, if you don't mind kind of sharing, like what motivates you, and how does your theology play into it? And I know that your theology is still, I mean, my theology is still developing.
Early on, when I was that baby Christian, it literally was sermon notes out and my Bible out, and just plagiarizing from the Bible and just throwing a whole verse, you know, inside of my song. Then as God's word began to be hidden in my heart and work in and through me, the process started to look different. You know, I didn't have to I had life experience as a Christian now. You know, when you get saved at almost 19, it's like I had pre-conversion experience, but I don't really have Christian life experience. But now it just comes from the overflow of my relationship with God. There's certain songs that I know I want to get to a certain conclusion, and it might take me, I might write 90% of the song in 30 minutes, like catching lightning in a bottle. But that last part of Black Holes is going to bring it back to hope or bring in the gospel. It might take me days to figure out those last 4 lines, how to position it. So I started out creating as just a words person. So I wrote the lyrics. I worked with other people to compose the music. During COVID, had a lot of downtime, and I really locked in on learning to produce music. I already played piano. I picked up another instrument, and that became a whole nother component. So my last album, 85% of it I self-produced.
Okay.
And that was different to create for God and worship God without words, like through a chord progression that you could talk about sin, or you could talk about, you could talk reckless or talk lies or talk truth. Like you could do anything to this chord progression. Right. There's no words to it yet. Is it evil? Is it good? How do we know there's no words to it yet? So, right. And there's so much power in music and how God made us to respond to music. And so,
I mean, just to interrupt, I mean, you learn that from the Old Testament about Saul. It's like my soul needs to be soothed through brings David. And even in, you could, like, I'm always curious what the Old Testament Psalms sounded like. Because some of the words are like, wow, that's really dark.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
they're throwing fists up in the air to God. Like, it's pretty, I mean, Psalm 73 is pretty brutal. I don't think that song had a happy one on it.
Wouldn't feel comfortable even talking that way to God sometimes.
And yet it's forever encapsulated in the
inspired.
So do you write both the lyrics and the music?
Yeah, that's where this album was hard, because normally you hear a song like Black Holes and the words just started coming to me. Like it was just so powerful, just the music. But when you go into the studio, there's nothing. It's like, where's my jump start of inspiration? So you're just fiddling around for hours, just playing things out. It's kind of fun, but quickly it gets to where it's like, this is just frustrating, and you have to learn, just pack it up, try a different day. So like a song like Sincerely is a song where I wrote to my inner child. I tried to find a way to, again, connect with new listeners who might be going through that. And so I always feel like that one person who overpronounces stuff, but it's technically pronounced ukulele, but we just say ukulele, but ukulele. And for some reason, every time I write a song on the happiest instrument, it ends up sounding sad. And so I was just plucking around, just randomly decompressing after the end of the day. So it's probably 10 o'clock at night. And I start playing this little thing on the ukulele, and I didn't even have time to set up my microphone. So I just got out my iPhone and just recorded a voice memo, and then just played it on a loop and wrote most of that song. Like I couldn't go to bed. Well, then after time I wrote it, it was so emotionally draining that I couldn't sleep. And I was probably at an emotional low for probably 3 or 4 days after writing that song, just taking myself back to that place of my childhood and thinking, I was in 2nd grade with suicidal ideation in 2nd grade. Like that's, none of my kids are even that young anymore. But I just thought, man, the whole idea is writing from a different time, but writing back to my past self as a Christian man who's 40 years old, and just thinking, dude, I would have loved just to rescue that everything he was going through, and telling him like, hey, through Christ, everything's going to be okay. And so it was so a song like that, I wrote it really fast, but then I was pretty low for a few days after that. But then a song like a fun song like Do It Scared, or I have a couple songs where I also wrote in Japanese, which I guess, I don't know when you want to open up that can of worms, but that's a whole different labor, writing in a second language, and it might take days to come back and craft it. So it really just depends on where the inspiration is at. I'm just thankful that the inspiration is still there. I've been doing this a long time. I didn't think I would still be releasing albums at this point, but clearly the Lord is still giving me things to say. So
that's from your new album.
Yeah, Not Destroyed.
Not Destroyed. Yeah. And that came out in October.
October 2025. Yeah.
Mm. And all of this is available iTunes.
Yep. Spotify,
YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that has it 17 songs? How many songs on that one?
Yeah, I think it has a couple interludes. I got Alistair Begg on an interlude.
I saw that.
I think it has 16 songs. 16 tracks, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to do a 6/7 there. Trust me, I really wasn't.
I know, man.
So yeah, a couple songs in Japanese.
Yes.
So a little bit of a spin of missionary for a while.
Yeah. And still am.
Yeah.
Just different address.
Absolutely.
I look at what my work is very missional because missions involves a lot of culture, and music and culture is very closely related. So I'm inserting myself into this culture of music and giving people, okay, yeah, there's grief, there's bad things, there's heartache. How do you process it with a gospel worldview? Speaking truth to lies, speaking light to darkness. Music has afforded me crazy opportunities to travel the world. I got to travel to Japan in 2020, right before COVID. And the Lord just set our hearts on fire for the need in Japan. It's a second most unreached people group, and if I would have known how hard it is to learn a language, let alone Japanese, I would have never started. So I'm glad I didn't know, because now I'm in so deep that I realize there's no turning back,
right.
So because of COVID, we were prevented getting to Japan as soon as we wanted to. And then by the time we did get there, it was in 2023, and moved my entire family over there. Our adult son stayed back, self-fundraised as missionaries, taught English classes at the church most days of the week, did youth services on Saturday where I would preach in Japanese for like a 10-minute message. I would translate into English and Japanese. Never been formally educated in Japanese. It's all been self-study.
Right.
And then I would trade off Wednesdays doing Old Testament Bible study, teaching, and I would teach in English on then, and they would translate to Japanese. So that was always an easier day. And yeah, we just got back from a trip we took in November, December, and we're still able to connect with our neighbors. We were able to invite our neighbors to an event where Japanese Christians were sharing their testimonies in the gospel. And you got to think, in a place where it's 1% Christian, what are the odds that your neighbor is going to be a Christian?
Right.
What are the odds that your regulars at the coffee shop are actually believers? So we've formed this great relationship with our barista. We just mailed him a package, and he wasn't able to come to the concert, but we invited him over for lunch, and I just gave a little acoustic concert with the couple songs I have in Japanese.
Yeah. Which are on the album, right?
Yeah. And we read the Lord's Prayer in Japanese from my Japanese Bible, and just giving people exposure to Christianity. So we've been back since 2024, but I've already been to Japan 3 times.
Okay.
So, and I'm already planning another trip this year.
Did you take a break from music while you were there, or just kind of focused on, did you take a break from...
Yeah, kind of just out of necessity, but I was still doing music, but just not at the same volume.
Yeah.
Music is a great tool on the mission field because it gives people a point of reference. Like, oh, rap music, I know that's like a very American thing. And it opens up a lot of doors. So when I go back to partner with churches, I do preach, but mainly they find me very useful to get people who would never walk into the church will come to a concert more than they would a service. So I've rapped in front of the train stations, and just rapping in front of the train station while it feels like thousands of people are walking by, while people invite them to the concert. And you see, some success in that. Some people who, like, we had a lady who had to be 80 years old. She came to the concert on a motorized wheelchair. Never been in a church, 80 years old. And she came to my concert and got to hear the gospel and hear God being praised in her language. So pretty awesome.
So you would do kind of both songs then, both
I
languages.
have like my 2.5 that I can do fully in Japanese.
Yeah.
I can share some about songs in Japanese, even if it's an English song. But I had another artist there who's actually from Kenya.
Okay.
Who has lived in Japan for 13 years and maybe more. And his Japanese is just elite. Most of his music is in Japanese. So he performed as well.
Yeah.
And he's an anomaly for Japanese people,
kidding.
you know, a dude from Africa, just speaking Japanese so fluently.
We went to Haiti and we were trying to get these kids to come to VBS. And so we would go into these neighborhoods. You know, this is really poor area. So they're like literal like huts, like tents, you know, and we're trying to hand out candy and soccer balls, whatever. And so like we're playing these Christian songs. The kids are kind of looking at us. And one of the college students was with me. He goes, "Can I try something?" I was like, "Okay." He starts singing this Bieber song.
No way.
Bro, kids start coming from everywhere.
They recognized it.
Oh, yeah, they're singing.
They probably thought he was Bieber.
Oh, man. He kind of looked like it, too. They came from, I mean, probably over 100 kids by the time he was done, and they're all excited, and then we're inviting them. But it was interesting just
Dude, it's just
how
like
powerful
Paul
music
at Mars Hill, man.
Right.
He's like, let me quote one of your own poets.
That's right.
He was just quoting the poet
That's right.
of our generation, Justin Bieber.
Yep. So we have it on video, and we went back, you know, you do the post video thing for the church, and we put that on there, and we all laughed because we knew what it was. It was like that moment of, oh, hey, these people are cool. We're going to hear what they have to say.
We had a moment like that in Japan recently. Our B&B, there was this playground right by it, which Japan playgrounds are elite, dude, next level.
Oh, really?
I hope one day you get to experience that.
Maybe I should go with you.
Yeah, and maybe I should go to Haiti. I'm willing to go anywhere, man. So we would go to this park, and these little Japanese kids were playing. And before too long, they realized my daughter could speak Japanese. And so then went from like 2 kids to about 12 kids who are just freaking out at this girl with blonde hair, you know, and green eyes who's speaking Japanese. And I'm trying to tell them, you know, zero English involved. So I'm trying to tell them what I do and why I'm in Japan. And so I'm like, well, I have a concert, and I'm actually, you know, a musician. I'm a rapper. And like, what? And how, you know how to say rapper in Japanese? No. Rappa.
Sounds very similar.
They have a lot of words they borrow from from English. So they say, oh, they're telling me we know an American song. So you're thinking, it's the year 2025. What American song do they know? Is it Bieber? Is it like a classic, like, I don't know, Bye Bye Miss American Pie? Is it a Johnny Cash song? Is it Michael Jackson?
Sure.
They start singing Forrest Frank.
No.
Yeah, it was emotional for me. As much as his music is like, has a very niche audience.
Sure.
I have zero shade to throw on that guy, because here's this Japanese girl singing, I need you now more than ever.
No.
Once you put my heart back together, your way's better. Like, not even realizing.
Of things that can go viral on the internet, I'm okay with that.
Yes. And I thought, and what's crazy is my friend actually mixed, you know, that's a music thing. You have to mix the music. He mixed that song. So I sent him the video. I was like, didn't you mix this? Like, I just want you to know this place is 99% lost. And this music just gave us a great opportunity to connect with these students. And that's how huge that song is. You know, in rural Japan at a playground,
crazy.
These kids start singing it and doing the dance, man. So that's the power of music right there.
He's really exploded lately.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you know him? Do you know Frank?
No, I don't know him personally, no.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy. So my son enjoys his music.
I just pray for guys like that. Anyone who, Lord, please keep them humble, keep them biblical, you know, and protect them. Because it's not, God did not make us to receive that much attention. And it's not that he asked for it, you know.
No, we were talking about that on the way over from the airport, just about, you know, as the danger of people in the public eye that don't have a good church, good elders, you know, for them to shepherd their soul and care for them. Even Christian influencers, you know, they need to have.
That's the whole thing now too.
Yeah.
I got to go on I got to go on a trip to Israel, and part of the trip was there was like a lot of Christian influencers that were on the trip. And I just thought, this is a trip. like
that's a thing, Christian influencers.
And some of them, you know, might have been so like baby Christians or very little theological like training. And it's where young people are going to figure out what they believe. So that's why it's so necessary, you know, for me now that I'm 40, why am I still doing this? Because it's necessary. Like, because I'm able to use the music to create opportunity and to grab their attention so that I could introduce good sound biblical truth, you know?
Well, and I think that's why I've been drawn to your music, because I would listen to it and I'm like, this guy, he's sliding in his theology here. Like I can hear it, you know, because at the first time I listened to your song, I knew nothing about you. I was like, is this guy reformed? Because he sure talks like he is.
Yeah, I don't even raps like he does. Yeah, I don't even realize it. And I think that's when your theology is really just you're living and breathing it. You know, it's been applied to your life. You know?
Yeah. No, it's kind of going back to it's interesting because I've had times where I've thought about like, do I want to keep, I enjoy preaching and caring for my church. It's my primary ministry, you know, my family and my congregation. That's what I do. And so there are times I've gone back and forth and like, do I want to keep doing Theocast? Is this a thing? And then I look at what's out there and I'm like, well, until God makes it pretty abundantly clear that I need to not do this, like there needs to be, because the internet's not going away. Social media is not going away. And I have determined that like, so you're old, so I'm 44. So you and I aren't far apart. I remember when churches started getting websites.
Wow. There's like that Tim Hawkins joke. It's like non-denominational is really Baptist with a website.
with a cool website, dude. I remember like when churches were determining whether they're going to have websites or not.
Oh, that was the thing. Like do we really want to do this?
Oh, yeah, in the Baptist, yeah. It's like, yeah, we're not getting on that wicked internet. We're not going to have a website.
Whoa, yeah. I barely missed that by 4 years, I guess.
Yeah. I was young. I was really, really young. And so it was just interesting how like, you can't survive unless you're on the internet now. Like you have to be on the internet. You have to have an email. And what's interesting about social media is I've noticed that it is very damaging. And even our society knows like how damaging it is. And so there's always been a weird, like, do you not participate? Do you participate? And the way I kind of thought about it is like, well, it's not, it'd be sinful. If it was sinful to participate, then I wouldn't do it. Well, that's ridiculous. But it's not sinful to participate, but you could sin. So how do you do it? You know, being wise in those situations. And I think that, you know, in the scenario that you're in, it's like you're an artist that gets to travel. It could turn into a sinful habits. But what I'm trying to say is I want to champion and I want to be excited for people who are a little older, have experienced and they know the dangers, and what they have to say comes with experience and time and from a place of like a solid foundation. Because sometimes I listen to Christian music today and I'll be like, if I'm going to be completely an open book, I don't like Christian music. I really don't.
Yes, me, as far as the main flavor.
No. It's hard to stomach, you know, like some of the theology behind it is just horrible. And I was like, this is nothing, or it's so vague. I don't like, there's nothing of substance. So it's like, this song could be sung about my girlfriend or my wife.
Yeah. You know, I got to be a part of one like CCM hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Called Symphony. But K-Love would only play a version of that song with me removed from it. We got to figure out what's happening. We're close to Nashville. We're at the epicenter of it all. That even went to the Dove Awards and performed it. And of course it was COVID, so there was no people there, but like different artists came in different days. Sure. And then when they aired it, it was so funny. I was doing this outreach with this friend of the family's church. I was on a flatbed trailer at a trunk or treat, right? My daughter's in a Yoshi, you know, costume. And I'm doing this outreach and I walk off the flatbed trailer and my phone's blowing up with apology messages. We're so sorry. We're so sorry. And I knew while I was up there, I'm like, how cool is this? I'm here performing at this little outreach, but I'm on national TV right now performing on the Dove Awards.
Right.
Like, I was kind of patting myself on the back, like, yeah, you're a good, humble servant. I
That's
step
funny.
off the flatbed trailer and it's like, we don't know what happened. And I find out soon as I was stepping on the stage, they went to commercial and they didn't air my part.
No.
So I have my whole conspiracy that it's just because there was just too much
gospel
truth in
there.
that
Too much
thing.
truth.
No,
Probably.
maybe it was just too aggressive. It was rap that wasn't Toby Mac. So they're like, we can't do it. But no, yeah, that's why I do what I do. And I don't take myself serious in the sense that I don't think that I'm like I don't know, like a big, Christian artist.
Sure.
I really do think that I communicate through art. It's how I think. It's how I think through my theology just naturally. But also, you got to understand it protects you from pride when the majority of performances you do is in rooms full of people who aren't there to see you, who are only there because they're either at a conference that their student pastor made them sign up for, or there's some other big, like it's a big church camp. Very rarely am I playing my music. Even if I'm in front of 5,000 people, I have to get them to buy into what I'm doing because they don't know me from Adam for the most part.
Right.
And that actually gets kind of exhausting after. I'm like, Lord, like, where are they? There's got to be certain. And of course, back before COVID, we would do these small tours, maybe average like 50 to 100 people a concert. And those would actually be people that were closer to my age demographic. But, my metaphor or my analogy I've been using lately is like a wedding band. No one's there for now they may be good and really talented and they're going to like support their family through being a wedding band, but people are there for the wedding.
That's right.
So I'm a wedding band, except I don't do any covers. Like imagine a wedding band where they're doing all their original music. Like that's a hard
sell. Yeah.
And so those are, I go to a church camp and there's 5,000 kids there and I have to do music that they've never heard. They don't know, who I am. And so that really like smashes the ego down because it is a grind to try to do that.
Yeah.
And I think, I almost look at that as what was tent making for Paul. Like this is the way I support my family in order for me to fund an album where I'm actually able to fully like open up my heart, and people might experience it, in different ways all across the digital world. But my day-to-day of like when you see me traveling and stuff, I'm not playing concerts in front of adoring fans, like I'm contributing to a local church ministry or maybe a state convention's goal and conference or whatever event they have going on. And I'm just one part of it,
Yeah.
So
you're saying it's not as glamorous as people think?
It's not as glamorous as people think. Yeah.
I've lived in Nashville and I've talked to enough musicians.
Yeah.
And the music industry is rough.
I'm like going through the airport. I just see so many people trying to make it. Like I saw so many people with their instruments and I'm like, I'm not trying to make it, and it feels really good to not, and I'm thankful. Like I don't want to underplay or downplay what the Lord has done.
Sure.
I'm very thankful for it. But when you're 40 years old, I'm not waiting for my big opportunity, It's so funny when a 13-year-old kid comes up to me and he's like, you're going to make it one day, man. Just keep it up. You might be the next NF. Or when someone shouts out, will you do a Forrest Frank song? And they want me to do a cover song.
Sure.
And I have to say, I don't do covers. And I want to tell that 13-year-old kid, dude, if you knew how old I was, you'd be freaked out.
Yeah. Could almost be Forrest Frank's dad.
Yeah. Oh, no, man. Oh, wait. Gosh, maybe 5 years away, maybe.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Now, but when I preach at camps and they say, I've been married 20 years, introducing myself,
Yeah.
They kind of know, wait, married 20 years? So then it's the whole group of kids. We're all guessing how old you are.
You hide 40 pretty good, man.
It's the oily skin, man.
Yeah.
What can I say?
There you go.
And the hats, you know, because I do have, it's kind of dark in here though,
Yeah.
but you know,
The gray
I'm rocking
hair.
the gray like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day if I dyed it, and I was like, I appreciate that.
No,
yeah.
I get asked that too because
Yeah,
it
I'm like,
does.
no,
It looks
I
very
don't.
cool. Like, what's that X-Men character, Rogue or
Yeah.
wait, Jean? Which one had the streak of
the streak on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were like, because my hair is so streaky. And I was like, no, that's called pastoring and fatherhood right there.
Yeah.
That's what that is. So my dad at my age was bald, so I'm pretty thankful.
No, we're doing good, bro.
Yeah.
I went to my 20-year high school reunion. I'm just saying, there's still stuff up here.
Yep.
I don't care what color
That's
it is.
exact. I'm like, it can be
thankful.
pink. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dye it. I asked my wife, I'm like, can I dye my hair? She's like, are you kidding me? Man, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
This is good. Well, you know, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to this episode. I hope they do. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and a little bit different for Theocast. But the goal was, I think we need to be able to start talking about theology in all of our life. And one, I wanted to let people know about who you are, you know, in the Reformed world, and I would say broader Christianity. We do have. You were talking about my sign extra notes. We do have some Lutherans and Presbyterians. So who knows, man?
Yeah.
You might have some Lutherans, you know, listening to you other than Flame.
Yeah, you Flame and Dillon Chase. Yeah, and you know, theology, we didn't dive into all the talks about theology, but it has been my it set my boundaries in how I approach art. You know, it determines how far I'll go, and then certain things like, oh well, that's not true, so I can't go. So I can talk truly about, how do you say that? I can talk truly about false things I've held to. You know, I could speak to it from in a true way, but I can't speak out lies and falsehoods.
Yeah.
And approaching suffering and these other things that have been themes of my music. It's the sovereignty of God and the goodness of God that has been the anchor that's kept me, you know? And it's like, if this bothers me, then how much does it bother God?
Yeah.
And if God wasn't real, and if the gospel isn't true, then why would I be bothered?
That's right.
Or like I say in Black Holes, is the very fact that you struggle and doubt me only means you've heard about me. You know, and the fact that I miss God and feel distance must mean I'm aware of his presence, because, you know, when I travel, I miss my wife. And the only reason why I miss her is because I know her, you know? And so in those seasons when I miss God, it's because I know that in the past, there's been times when I've been very intimately close with him. Yeah. These are all things that are very theological that come up in my music and life. So yeah, I'm thankful for sound theology. I'm thankful for this podcast and the focus on grace and the gospel. Yeah.
Yeah, we've known about each other for a while. I'm trying to remember the first time we started messaging each other. It was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I always just assumed that I think my pastor listens to y'all's podcast too. So I always assumed that he sent Black Holes in or was like, hey, this guy goes to our church. You got to check out his song. So that's kind of cool that you just came across it organically.
Yeah, it was, like that train of, and then I obviously I started listening. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go make sure this guy, because I was going to like send your song to a bunch of people in my church. I'm like, I'll make sure this guy isn't someone like one-hit wonder Mormon or something, you know, like I'm going to go.
Oh, man.
So I went and check you out on Instagram, and I was like, this cat checks out. I think we'll be okay. No, I think, so one of the, just kind of round it all back up, like one of the areas that in my own life personally, that I think, like if Christians could, what I would call, if they can embrace a Genesis 3 worldview, which is Genesis 3, you know, Jesus is standing before Adam and Eve and the serpent, and he pronounces the curse. And we're told in Revelation that curse is not removed until Christ comes back, which means you live in a world that is created and designed by God, but under a curse. And that curse is brutal. It's corruption and death, basically. And the greatest lie that Satan can get us to, and we're talking about this in the truck, to believe is that there is no curse. Like you can make the world better, the right people, right time, right attitude. And this is like the political game that's going on right now, you know, and even with Christianity. And when you finally step back and go, no, this is a curse, and Satan has done a brilliant job of pretending like he's not under a curse and the world's not under a curse. And the only solution, because when you finally realize, everybody that Jesus healed They all died.
They still die.
And he never, ever gave them a hope in this world. It was a hope beyond the world, right? That's why he's like, set your treasures in heaven, set your mind on things above, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And it's not finished until we are restored. You know, this is why Romans, when he says things like, our bodies are still groaning, the world is still groaning.
Yeah.
And that for me is what resonates a lot in your music. And that's, you know, that if sometimes if you're listening to this, it's good and healthy to have someone else tell you you're not crazy. You know, that's why I think that song was on repeat. And at times I go back to it, like I have what's called, it's called my worship rap playlist, which people see that and they're like, really? I'm like, oh, bro, you got to hear these songs. These songs are good. And so there's several that are in there, and they are always talking about this reality. And I love hearing that reality because it's never a doomsday song. It's a, hey, you need to be reminded that this isn't right, but this is what's right.
Yeah, already, but not yet.
That's right.
You know, I have another song that's very radio sounding, but it's called Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
And but it says, you know, the adoption papers signed, the payment's been applied at the orphanage. Yeah, my Savior will arrive. The fact he's on the way changes how I deal with pain.
Amen.
The struggle still remains, but it don't even feel the same. And just knowing that it's the already, but not yet.
That's right.
And he's
Very
on the
reformed.
way. Yeah, he's on the way. And the fact that it's past tense, the adoption papers have been signed. This world is the orphanage, and it's a cruel one, but he's on the way, you know, and we're adopted into his family. We have a family. And so it changes the way it changes the scale, because like 2 Corinthians, you know, or even Romans 8, it's not worthy to be compared, you know, so change the scale. I used to joke like, you know, if you're arguing about, you know, who could touch the rim, right? And everyone's trying to that's such a white thing, dude. Does any other race even try to touch the rim?
Not dunk.
You know, and
Not
that's,
dunk.
yeah,
Can
just
you,
touch the rim.
We start with the net. Can you touch the net?
Yeah, it's like just, you know, and that's the scale. But then it's like, well, who could touch the top of the Sears Tower or something like that? Or
right.
You know what I mean? Or the Empire State Building.
That's right.
That's a whole, it's not even worth arguing about the rim, you know? And all these sufferings we have now, it's just touching the rim. I mean, because what we have waiting in eternity is more than we could even imagine.
Yeah. And I think you being at 40 and have had enough theology, you can look back and you would never want anyone to experience what you've had to experience, but you can look back and go, it's what shaped my worldview to understand that it's Christ, only Christ, that will ever make sense of a world like this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I've had so many people in my own church and in Theocast where they email me and they're like, I have been to the point where I don't want to live. And it wasn't until I heard that Christ loves me and he cares for me and he can give my soul rest. There's a difference between body rest and soul rest, right? Your body could be in turmoil and your soul at rest, and you can endure anything. That's why Paul's like, I did an episode a while back, and it just dawned on me how Paul says that God's grace is power. And we don't connect those two. We think of grace of like, oh, God's favor and kindness towards us. But Paul says it's God's grace that is the power to endure suffering. He goes, my grace
sufficient
in weakness, for my power.
Yeah.
And how did he get the power? It came through grace, right?
Wow.
So you realize that one, you have purpose for your life in the midst of this dark hole, this absolute brutality, and it will not make sense apart from Jesus, apart from his gospel, right? And so that's where, like, I want to promote your work, and anybody who gets this, like, listen, let's say the dark thing part out loud. Let's admit that this is not how it's supposed to be, because it gives us the platform to then say, but you're not without hope.
Yeah.
There is a hope, right? I have learned even in my own life though, and a lot with other people, sometimes just letting them have that moment of, that is a horrible experience.
Yeah.
Like letting them, because everybody wants to pretend like everything's fine. It's I tell my wife, there's big couples in our church well, I know what's going on in their marriage. And then I look at social media and she's like, wow, they look so happy. And I'm like, they're not. they are not happy. And this is what we do, right? It's like we can't admit that everything is not okay because honestly, it doesn't really sell unless it's the news.
That's deep, man.
Yeah.
That applies though in all the little areas of our life too. Because even as a husband, I'm learning recently, or just in this season of marriage, even as a husband, as a dad, sometimes you have to be humble enough to admit that, yeah, I'm broken. It's not, I know I'm focusing on this little thing that normally doesn't bother me. It's not because there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with me, and I've learned that that's been a grace in my marriage to admit, even to my kids, but especially my wife, like, man, I'm really struggling with just feeling the pain of loss today. And it's kind of making me moody and I'm finding like easily irritated, but could you pray for me? That's hard to do, but it could save a whole day of just constantly overcorrecting or being a certain way. And, but it's humbling and it seems like in those moments when I humble myself and open up and admit the brokenness, that's when the grace can start to do. I guess that's when grace can be the power, because then grace meets you in that moment.
Listening to you say that, I would never want to be Paul because Paul is the most predominant, well, all the apostles, but Paul is the most predominant writer in the New Testament, right? And someone could say like, yeah, well, Paul says that, but he doesn't know what I went through. I was like, bro, you haven't read what Paul went through. Ain't nobody that I know of has gone through what that poor dude went through.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point in his life, he's like, everybody's abandoned me. I'm literally alone in prison. Like,
and he wasn't exaggerating.
No. And then you think about the amount of times he had been forgotten, beaten, lied about. I mean, the Church of Corinth hated that guy. They're like, we don't even think you're an apostle. And Paul's like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
So when that guy looks at you in the eye and goes, God's grace is sufficient. You can do anything through Christ. Yeah. That sounds a little bit different than the, hey, let's go win it in the second half.
Yeah.
You're looking at someone who just lost their child, who just got the diagnosis, who've been abused, who's, their parents are, you can look at them and say, I know this seems impossible, but with Christ, there is a purpose through this. And that working all things for good is not where the story somehow has a happy ending. That's not what that means. Yeah. Which is what we want it to mean.
God is the good, and being conformed to his image is good.
And being restored in him in the new heavens and the new earth. Like that's where things are good.
Yeah. Not going to find it here.
No.
Is the curse.
It's right.
Yeah.
So if you're like me and at times you need to, what I call, it's not moping music, but there are times where I'm like, I need to feel.
Come face to face with the curse and just look at it, feel the weight of it so that I could, the light of the gospel will shine that much brighter.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then there are days I want a happy song like 18 Summers. So anyways, good friend Dillon here can provide that for you. So are you working on anything new?
Right now, I'm just working hard studying the language of Japanese and writing some things for just some local churches, writing some spoken word pieces. As far as the album, I don't know when I'll do that. And working on writing music for other artists, which has been something new that's a new opportunity. So
that's great.
Trying to write for someone without making it sound like me writing. So
that's tough because all your music's been pretty personal.
Very personal. Yeah. So going to be interesting.
Because every time I've heard songs, I'm like, you don't say that unless you went through that or know someone who did. Like it was worded in such a way where I'm like,
mine has always been that style. Certain people can put themselves into other people's mind and write from that perspective.
Sure.
But yeah, most of this year will be full of a lot of like preaching and teaching, opportunities. As I've gotten older, I probably do more of that than I do performing music, but music is still a big part of it. And so we'll see.
That's awesome, man. Well, DillonChaseMusic.com.
Yes.
For those of you that want to go check it out. And his journey, I've watched a whole journey going to and from Japan. And it's been fun. And yeah, man, beautiful family. And watching, it's been weird. Like, it's almost creepy how much I've watched your kids grow up.
Yeah.
Because they're like, for me, I follow two kinds of people. They follow people I'm really interested in their life, meaning like theology and just kind of what they stand for, or they're really funny. Because I can't, like, I deal with so much dark stuff. I'm like,
you need to laugh.
Yeah. So there are certain people, and I'm like, this guy's just really funny, and he posts really funny things, so I'm gonna follow him.
I got to get to the funny stuff. It's there.
I find myself on social media less and less. My kids pull me back because they'll send me stuff all the time. They're just now getting on Instagram, so they're finding all the funny stuff that they're sending it to me. But yeah, it's you know, we're not going to go down the social media world, whatever. So, well, man, I appreciate you.
Thank you,
we may or may not do another episode. I don't know. We have to look at our time frame here, but I didn't want to make this one go short. Man, I appreciate you just sharing your life and your experience. And you had, that was such a period for me of time where it was so influential and helpful. And I was thinking about, people would ask me like, hey, we should get more guests on Theocast. And I'm like, well, I may not bring the guest that you want. I'm going to bring the guest that I want.
There we go. Yeah. I was telling my friends that I don't know what we're going to talk about because I've never heard them really talk about rap music, but we'll see.
So yeah, JP, the guy, he can run circles around anybody, man. That guy in hip hop. Oh man. Bro, that's why we'd get together anytime we were together. That's what he listens to. And bro, he has, he's got a knowledge because he grew up in the football culture.
Okay. So yeah.
So yeah, we'd get around some other guys in my church, and they would start doing the battle.
Oh, really?
And I'm lost, bro. I didn't grow up in I was not allowed.
Of
course, I had to sneak listen, and whatever came on the radio, I was like, oh, is that Michael Jackson? I think that's Michael Jackson. Yeah. So till I was in my 20s, I was, secular music or movies. So a lot of people will make music or movie references, and I'm like, I got no clue.
Yeah.
No.
Man. Like, it's so fun to be a fundamentalist.
You know what? There are parts of it I don't mind. Like, there are memories that I'm glad I don't have to try and erase. So
true.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean I wasn't a sinner. I just hit on my sin. All right, brother. Well, those of you that are listening, go check it out. And
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go give the guys some support and some prayer. And it's for me, I think I always want to promote people who have good theology and good music. Sometimes you get good theology and not so good music. Then you get great music and not so great theology. And there are times where I'm listening to artists and I was like, I just wish your theology was better because this is a really good song. Yeah, but these words are like brutal. It's like, oh. So, all right, brother. Thanks, man.
Thank you.